Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. We're just going to allow all the participants to join. I apologize that we started a couple minutes late. As is always the case, technology is a wonderful thing when it works. We've got all our guests here, but again, anybody who's spent any time in Israel, I shouldn't say we have all our guests, we're just missing one. Anybody who spent any time in Israel knows the traffic can be similar to Toronto or other major cities. So Moshe Simantov is on his way, and he'll be joining us in just a couple of minutes. We're just going to adjust as we move forward. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Oded Orgel, and I'm president of the Canada-Israel Chamber of Commerce. And I'm thrilled to invite all of you to today's event. I'm going to just take a minute, just introduce the chamber for those of you who don't know, and I'll make a brief introduction of our first guest and allow him to talk a little bit. So, as I said, the Chamber is a national organization in Canada. Our mandate is to promote bilateral trade between Canada and Israel. And in doing so, we look for opportunities such as today to invite Israeli companies and sometimes Canadian companies to talk about their platform, to share opportunities that we can allow our two great countries to participate in as we move forward. So our first guest, I do want to make an introduction, Ronnie Yeagerman. Ronnie and his team at Exiteam have been tremendous partners with the Chamber. Ronnie himself is a highly experienced entrepreneur and investment banker. He's a director of public companies, crowdfunding expert in Israel. He's got a tremendous amount of experience in taking Israeli companies public, both here in Canada and in Europe. In Canada on the TSX Venture, and the Canadian Securities Exchange. So I just want Ronnie to perhaps, Ronnie, say a couple words, a little bit about yourself and your team and the opportunities that you see going forward for Israeli companies to participate in the Canadian capital markets.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oded, thank you for hosting us. It's a real pleasure being here. My name is Ronnie Yeagerman. As Oded said, I'm an investment banker, and I'm a founder and partner of an investment platform that does one thing, leads Israeli companies to list on Canadian capital markets. And I think the opportunity is on both sides. Israeli technology has excelled in the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years. We are at a record high of financing for Israeli techs in Israel. In the 5 months ended May of this year, the financing of Israeli tech preceded all the financing that happened in 2020. Although it was a Corona year, it was still also a record high of Israeli financing. So money is pouring into Israeli tech. Israeli tech is recognized worldwide as leaders in many, many fields. And I think the first thing, the opportunity we bring to Canadian investors is to take part and invest in Israeli tech. But not only that, getting also a liquid asset rather than invest in a private Israeli tech company. For the Israeli companies, I think Canadian capital markets are unique opportunities. I don't think in the world that we have today capital market where you can actually raise money and list companies south of $100 million market cap. And that is the opportunity. It's a much better opportunity to raise capital than to go for VCs or private investors because the entrepreneurs are in control. They can lead company with rather low interference from VCs or private investors who have other interests than the interest of the company. Canada has a very easy regulation in going public, has a great corporate structure, and we have had a lot of success with Israeli tech companies. I've just done the math of 12 companies who went public since 2019 to 2021, including 3 this year. The return for Canadian investors who've invested in the RTO on average of 12 companies was about 300% on the RTO price. So I think that's also a record for Israeli companies. And I think if we work this way moving forward, Canada can be both an attractive market for Israeli companies, but also an attractive place for Canadian investors who want to invest into Israeli technology companies.
Ronnie, that's fabulous. Thank you. That provides, a very nice overview of where we are and what's going on in the world. I'm going to let everybody, just so people know, we're going to go through all our speakers. If you do have questions of any of our speakers, please put them on the chat, and then we'll definitely have a few minutes at the end to talk about that. I'd like to turn it over now to our second guest today, Nitzan Paldi. Nitzan is the founder of Forrest Innovations Limited. Prior to being with Forrest, he co-founded and was the chief technology officer at P-Logics, which in 2011 was acquired by Monsanto on the New York Stock Exchange. In his role at P-Logics, he was responsible for the rapid progression, conception of the idea, all the way to FDA approvals for all their safety and technical sections, as well as 3 equivalent efficacy trials. Between 2011 and 13, Nitzan was the platform lead at Monsanto with their BioDirect program. In that role, he was responsible for the Bee Health platform and the incorporation of this platform into Monsanto's primary PR agenda. In 2013, Nitzan founded Forrest Innovations and has served as its CEO from inception. Forrest Innovations is now the only group in the world that has demonstrated the prevention of mosquito-borne disease using the sterile insect technique. So, Nitzan, I'm very excited to hear a little bit more about what you've got going on at Forrest and your plans going forward. So I turn it over to you.
Great. Let me know, please, if you can hear me and can you see my screen?
So far, looks great.
Excellent. So, first of all, welcome everybody to today's presentation and today's webinar. Forrest Innovations, written with a double R, is not because we're ignorant Israelis that don't know how to spell the forest. It's because that was my nickname, Forrest, in biologics. Forrest Gump famously said, from that day onwards, if I was going anywhere, I was running. And this is my philosophy. And obviously, that's when we started Forrest Innovations. It was just natural to call the company Forrest. So what is Forrest all about? We're totally focused today on eradication of mosquito-borne diseases. We've raised to date $14 million, and I've been putting my money where my mouth is ever since the beginning of Forrest until this very day. And I've put $3 million out of this total. We've got commercial licenses to operate in Brazil, and we're now going to go public in Canada. And this is in order for us to be able to expand our global operations properly. In order to describe exactly what we're doing, first of all, we will show you a short animation, and I'm sure that it will speak better than 1,000 words, but I will reiterate everything that you will see in the animation.
Of millions of people around the world, preventing that needless suffering is now within reach. Today, no successful vaccines have been developed for the main mosquito-transmitted diseases, and toxic insecticides are harmful and ineffective. Forrest has managed to solve this problem with a now commercially available alternative. So how does it work? Mosquitoes are collected locally and then bred exponentially in our production facilities. The non-biting, non-disease transmitting males are separated from the females and undergo a unique sterilization process, keeping them healthy as opposed to the local fertile males. These locally sourced sterile male mosquitoes are highly effective and keep the ecological balance. Because the female mosquito only mates once in a lifetime, this affair results in infertile eggs that don't hatch and an immediate reduction in the local mosquito population. We call this natural vector control because the treatment safely and effectively prevents mosquito-transmitted disease. Forrest Innovations' unique solution is already being implemented in Brazil with a recent published study showing how areas treated with natural vector control have drastically lower infection rates of dengue. Forrest Innovation is leading the fight against mosquito-borne illnesses, one bite less at a time.
So what is Forrest Innovations all about? We are preventing mosquito-transmitted diseases, and we've focused so far on dengue. Dengue is the world's most widespread and fastest spreading mosquito-borne disease. It's very much a big problem because it causes acute fever, pain, and it has a long-lasting effect, very much like long COVID. Actually, in many countries that have got problems with COVID, like Brazil and India, many cases of dengue and COVID are actually confused and sometimes not properly diagnosed. So they co-occur, and it's a big problem. Almost 4 billion people in the world are at risk of contracting dengue. Many millions are infected every year. Some figures put them at 100 million people in the world every year, and at least 40,000 people die every year from this. But despite the fact that there's been multi-billion-dollar efforts to try to prevent this and to overcome this and to try to find ways in order to resolve the problem, there are actually no safe and effective prevention methods for dengue and for most other mosquito-transmitted diseases. And that's why we've developed what we call natural vector control. Natural vector control has been proven in several projects in Brazil to reduce the incidence of dengue by over 95%. And we've done this, as I said, in properly controlled studies. This has been published in the Journal of Infectious Diseases. This potential application using natural vector control is applicable for all other mosquito-borne diseases, including malaria. And we've developed a breakthrough method of SIT, sterile insect technology, and this is what we call natural vector control. And how does it really work? What we do, of course, is we go first of all to the disease epicenters. We locate where the mosquitoes are breeding. We collect the local mosquitoes, differently from genetically modified mosquitoes that are bred in one location and sent all over the world. We always collect the local mosquitoes. This ensures that they are highly competitive, and it ensures the fact that they are also easily approved from the regulatory perspective. We grow millions and millions of mosquitoes. We separate very efficiently the males from the females. The males do not bite, so they don't transmit disease. And then the sterile males are released into the environment. They find the female mosquitoes, and after they copulate with the female mosquitoes, the eggs are sterile and the mosquito populations decline drastically, leading to almost no disease. And we've shown this now in several projects that we've done in Brazil, as I said, and it's the only technology that has actually, sterile insect technology that has actually shown direct results in preventing dengue. And our advantage, the competitive advantages that we have is first of all, of course, it's commercially approved in Brazil. This is not trivial. It's affordable and cost effective. We've developed a very scalable model that can be moved from place to place. Think of the McDonald's, for example. You have a central training facility, and then the people that are trained in the central training facility go out. They can either be employees of Forrest or in the future operate franchises that will be producing the sterile mosquitoes on a local basis and easily producing many millions of eggs of sterile males and releasing them into the environment. Forrest, so I had the pleasure of hearing about myself from Oded, and we also have a very strong team of individuals in our management. We have Miss Elaine, that she's really the person behind all our successes in the last 3 years in Brazil, and Mr. Gad Levine, who is a very accomplished CFO that has been part of several transactions on the public markets in Canada. The global market that we're operating in is a huge market. For example, Sanofi, the pharmaceutical company that tried and failed to develop a dengue vaccine, they were anticipating to have a blockbuster dengue vaccine of over $1 billion of sales. Unfortunately for them, they failed in their attempt to develop the vaccine. And the global market directly for dengue is $9 billion. And just in Brazil, we're talking about $1.2 billion. It's important to realize that this market for containing, trying to prevent, trying to treat is actually not effective. And the problem is getting worse every year. In terms of competition, we have several very interesting competitors. We've got a company from England called Exiteam that has been on the news recently, trying to operate in Florida. They've had a lot of pushbacks over the last decade because they use genetically modified mosquitoes. And there's another small competitor called Google. Verily, the Alphabet company has developed a very interesting competitive technology which uses very sophisticated robotics and is very, very expensive. They produce the world's most expensive mosquitoes, and that's according to them. We are talking about a business model which is actually able to take advantage of all of the potential geographies and environments. First of all, of course, working directly with municipalities, with the states, and with the federal government, working through additional companies that already have existing works with governments, taking private companies, working with private companies. For example, in Brazil, we have a project with a company called Klabin that has hired us in order to protect the population of a city where they have many employees, and we are actually protecting and providing protection for their employees from dengue. And in places like the United States, we're also looking to implement a B2C model, supplying sterile mosquitoes directly to private homes and commercial outlets. And we are looking to do this through drones. Hopefully, by the time we will have our sterile mosquitoes authorized in the United States, natural vector control will be authorized in parallel to this. Hopefully, the commercial package drones will also be able to be authorized, and they will be the ones releasing mosquitoes directly over the properties. What are the short-term deliverables that we are aiming at? First of all, we've, together with the team of Ronnie, we've completed a pre-RTO funding of $2 million in 2021. We've signed already an LOI with a Canadian company for performing the RTO on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So we are looking to list in Canada sometime towards the end of Q3. In terms of, apart from additional projects in Brazil that we are looking to add starting from September 2021, we've also going to open now another R&D facility to develop a similar product for the tiger mosquito, which is a major nuisance in the United States, in Europe, and also in Israel. We are started already the regulatory approval process also in the United States, and the center that is going to operate this is going to start operating also towards the end of 2021. And we're also already talking to several other potential distributors in additional countries beyond Brazil and the United States in order for us to be able to expand the global expanse of natural vector control everywhere in the world where it will be able to stop dengue. And our targets, so we're looking to raise at least $5 million, enlisting in Canada. We're going to expand, roll out across Brazil starting from 2021. We're looking to take a major global, major share of the market in Brazil in the next 2 or 3 years. We want to expand into additional countries, as I said, finalize approval also in the United States and start massive utilization there and commercialize the additional products, including solutions for malaria, which we think we can provide a similar solution as well. So thank you very, very much for your time and for listening. And please feel free, of course, to post any questions that you have, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Perfect, Nitzan, thank you very much. I've got a couple questions. I'm going to wait to the end to see if there's other people, but thank you very much for your presentation. I'll now turn it over. I just want to introduce the founder and chairman of our second company, out of Israel, utilizing Israeli technologies and bringing it to the Canadian exchange, is Professor Avner Yayon. He is the founder, as I said, and chairman of Procore Biomed. Professor Yayon is a pioneer and world-renowned researcher of polypeptide growth factors, which are the extracellular matrix and the mechanisms underlying human skeletal disorders. He was the scientific founder of Procore Biotech and served as its president and CSO from '96 until its sale in 2009. Procore developed an advanced cartilage repair product called BioCart2, and that was later acquired by another company. Professor Yayon's background, he holds a PhD and MD from Hebrew University and Hadassah Medical School in Jerusalem. He served as a research associate in the Department of Surgical Research at Harvard Medical School and is an associate professor of molecular cell biology at the Weizmann Institute in Israel. Professor Yayon, I'd love to turn it over to you now, and please tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with Procore Biomed.
Great, thank you very much, and hello everybody. I would like to tell you about Procore and the product we developed. And so together with me on the team, there's an excellent group, very experienced people, our CEO, Nomi, our CFO, Tali, our Chief Medical Affairs, and Eilat, our production manager, all people with great experience in the industry who have brought different products to the market. Few words about Procore. Our mission is to develop cost-effective solutions to improve the quality of life of people who suffer from joint pain and also arthritis. And maybe let me start with a question to the audience. How many people really know somebody who suffers from joint pain? And I'm sure that if not 100%, that very close to 100% of the people who listen to us either themselves or know somebody who has some kind of a joint pain or beginning of joint degeneration. It's an extremely common disorder and results from wear and tear of the cartilage in our joints. And for this, we developed Regenogel. It's a novel solution. It's a solid elastic injectable made of all natural materials, which I'll tell you about how does it reduce pain and improve quality of life. We got marketing approval by the Israeli Ministry of Health in 2018. So far invested in the company about $11 million, from which about $5 million were invested by myself. And we have several rounds, a round of private investors, and the rest also from European grants. We have a clear regulatory path in Canada, and we decided to go first, to go public in Canada. We've already signed an LOI with a reporting issuer to list on the CICC. And we have distribution agreements in Israel, China, Ukraine, Vietnam, Brazil, and okay. Just as an overview, in terms of our major effort in the regulatory arena, we are approaching both Canada and the FDA. And as I mentioned, we are soon to start a pivotal clinical trial in Canada, expecting to reach marketing approval by Q1 2023, and then followed by studies and approval by FDA at the end of 2024. Sorry, there was a bit of. Actually, I wanted to show you a short video, which I think, which demonstrates nicely, I think, how the product works. hear the
Nature
sound?
never ceases to inspire us with coordination, motion, flexibility, and rejuvenation. With Regenogel, we harnessed some of nature's incredible features to provide you with fast, long-lasting pain relief. It is a non-surgical procedure in a doctor's office. Regenogel is a flexible and very stable gel that slides and fills the gaps and holes of the damaged cartilage. Safe, efficient, and clinically proven to reduce pain and improve function.
Regenogel is a product that consists of hyaluronic acid and fibrinogen. The product is natural, is biologic, and have no side effect. As a doctor who treats a lot of patients with osteoarthritis of the joint, I can see a lot of improvement in these patients who are treating with Regenogel and for a longer time comparing to other treatment.
Regenogel enables a longer anti-inflammatory and lubricating effect on osteoarthritic knees. We have conducted a safety trial at the Safa Rofeh Medical Center and found no side effects. Based on positive results, we're currently running a multi-centered trial to evaluate advanced versions of this product.
I've been suffering for many years from pain in my knee. I've tried many treatments and none of them were successful. With Regenogel, the pain stopped after a day. Now I'm more mobile than ever.
Relieve pain. Regain mobility. Regenerate. Regenogel for fast, long-lasting relief.
Okay. The advantage is that it's made really of natural products, actually all of them present as part of our physiology system in our body. Beginning from, if we actually take hyaluronic acid, which is currently used by most of the competitors, and it's the natural lubricant of our joints. The problem with hyaluronic acid is that it dissipates out, it degrades very quickly in the joint, and this is why it is not as effective. And what we do, we link it to another natural component, which is fibrinogen, a major protein involved in wound healing and regeneration of tissues in our body. And by the unique combination performed using our proprietary chemistry, we get a super material which can be on one hand injected into the joint as a non-viscous liquid, but once it gets into the joint, as you saw in the short movie, it becomes a solid gel that can withstand forces, dissipate loads across the joint, and allow lubrication and smooth movement of the joints. So this is the major essence behind the product, and we are really in a fast-track process beyond the major track that we're taking with the approvals in Canada and the US. We've decided to take also a fast-track strategy and to reach into countries and territories in which there's a regulatory environment in which they accept the clinical trials and the process development we did in Israel. And we were very successful in that process. And we've signed distribution agreements already with not only in Israel, but also in China, the Ukraine, Vietnam, Brazil, and India. And these, and in fact, we just got our first international order just this month for over $1 million from the Chinese distributor. So this is where we are now, and we're looking to raise funds in Canada by reverse merger with the Canadian shell, and with a major purpose to be able to start developing in the US and Canada, while we expect significant revenues in 2 to 3 years from now from the other territories.
Avner, is that it? That's wonderful. That's a wonderful summary. Thank you. You know, as someone who personally experiences knee pain and joint pain, I'm looking forward to potentially having your product available here in Canada. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. We'll see if some people have some questions at the end. Without further ado, I want to now introduce our featured speaker, who, thank you, Moshe, who fought Tel Aviv traffic, I think, to get here on time, and now he's been patiently waiting. So Moshe, thank you very much for joining us. Introducing Moshe Bar Simantov. He is the former Director General of the Ministry of Health of the State of Israel. Prior to that, he served in the Ministry of Economic Affairs to the United States, where he was based in Washington, D.C. Prior to that, he served for 11 consecutive years in the Budget Division of the Israeli Ministry of Finance. And in that Budget Division, he was the Senior Deputy Director of that division, responsible for all the social expenditures in the Israeli national budget, including healthcare, education, employment, and the welfare system. He holds an MA and a BA in Economics and Business Administration from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And there's so much more to his bio, but I want to turn it over to him and allow him to talk of why we've got him here when he helped lead Israel in conquering the coronavirus and the various economic, health, and technological considerations that took place as Israel was able to lead the world and get out of it. So Moshe, if I could turn it over to you. Thank you again for joining us today and for battling traffic and being patient through all this. Over to you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll start with a question about how Israel actually succeeded in leading the exit from COVID. I think that the answer is always more complex than we can think about, and of course there is not just one component, and there is no silver bullet, though the vaccination project is a type of silver bullet for the pandemic. But if we go deeper, I think that it's the combination of the unique characteristic of the Israeli healthcare system, which deriven from socialism roots. The basic structure relies on the Bismarck model in Germany, though we say that Germany didn't updated their model quick enough, so it's in the basic, and then, well, let's say the startup nation characteristic of Israel and the out-of-the-box approach. So, and the digital approach of the Israeli healthcare system. I think that Israel succeeded in leveraging all the advantage of our system in order to deal with the pandemic. We are community-oriented, so the mass majority of the patients were treated in the community, and it kept the hospitals, the Israeli hospitals, relatively capable in dealing with the patients in hard condition. And then, of course, there is the digital approach. As I said, we were able to make right use of the data, both in the treatment phase, but only also in the management of the system as a whole. And then came the vaccination project that I think took to a new record the capabilities of the Israeli healthcare system. And it's again one of the Israeli characteristic of taking a project and investing all the effort needed in order to deal with it. So I think that it was a constraint of effort made by all the components of the Israeli healthcare system. And I think that we also had the vision to start with the purchasing of vaccination very early. At the Ministry of Health, we started mid-April the negotiation with Moderna. We ended the negotiation with them at the beginning of June, more or less, and then we started with Pfizer, etc. But I think that I don't know, from some reason we understood that though the vaccination It might look far and maybe not realistic, but we should put our chips on that. And we did it very early, and we were lucky enough that it eventually worked.
That's great. I think you've talked a little bit about obviously the uniqueness of Israel. I mean, the socialized background, perhaps the database, because many people, as we know, go to the army, so there's that information. During your time, was there communication between yourself and other countries on maybe thinking forward? I mean, and for them borrowing some of that know-how, aside from the startup nation, but the experience that Israel's had, was there global cooperation to worry about the next pandemic?
So yes, there were cooperation in several levels. There was the countries club that Israel was member of, together with Austria. I'll try to recall correctly. I think that Denmark was there, Austria was there, and some other countries, Greece, Cyprus, Italy, and some other countries as well. And we were sharing ideas and thoughts. I think that, well, we can always learn from each other, but we have to take in account the specific characteristic of any country. I think that it's very hard for Israel to learn how to operate schools during pandemic, because the Israeli education system is much more crowded, probably, than any other countries, and less disciplined as well. So it makes it harder as well. But we learned a lot, and we shared thought as well. And at the Ministry of Health, we were also in touch with almost every country that we saw that we can learn from, for good or bad, you know. So we're trying to learn from experience, and again, to share from our experience as well.
Interesting. Here in Canada, you may or may not be aware, there was some concern at some point that several years ago, the government took away the ability for manufacturing of these drugs in Canada. Wondering what is this, again, I don't believe Israel had a lot of manufacturing capability, but talk about that, no. And is there thought in the future of creating that ability? Again, here in Canada, there is now concern. What about Israel? Is there thought of building that manufacturing capability?
Well, I don't know if it's realistic. I mean, we were considering creating these capabilities for flu, but it's much more complicated when you get into the details. I think that a field for cooperation could be in the R&D phase, and maybe a consortium of a few countries that going along the value chain from R&D to manufacturing, and then every country can contribute from its own capability and gain from other countries' capabilities. And I think that this is something that Israel, I believe that Canada as well, and maybe some other countries should think about. Again, getting prepared not to the next pandemic, we should prepare to any next global disaster that could be in several manners, not just a pandemic.
Thank you. We've heard today from about a couple Israeli companies that are exporting their medtech. I'm wondering, in your experience, I mean, I know you spent a lot of time in the United States. Do you see the opportunities in certain sectors for Israeli and Canadian companies specifically to cooperate on the medtech side, going forward?
I'm sure that there is. I mean, we must explore it in details, but I can tell that when I was Director General of the Ministry of Health, we try to learn from Canada. I visited Canada as well. There are many things that Israel can learn from the way that Canada manages its healthcare system. I think that the public characteristic of your system is something to be proud of, and this is something that we should get better in. But when it gets to the supply of services, I think that there are a few characteristics that we might can think about together. Canada is much bigger than Israel, but we both have a challenge with the relatively rural areas, and then technology can come and help us to deal with these challenges better. And I think that again, health tech, digital health, it's not just telemedicine, it's much more. It's using algorithm, using AI, and again, the way that we manage the system as a whole, it's something that we can do much better with the technology, with the data, and I believe that there is a room for collaboration.
Thank you. We have one question from the audience. I don't know if it's true, but it's interesting. He comments, I mean, the belief is that Israelis are in better physical condition than many North Americans with less obesity. I don't know if that's true, but to what extent did this help? Is it true? In fact, I don't know.
We once benchmarked Israel in chronic conditions relatively to other countries. So we don't satisfied with our situation.
Okay.
And like any other Western or not just Western country, we see, all the indicators that are getting worse every year. The Israeli situation might a little bit better, but I wouldn't say that this is the reason why Israel performed better. There are some factors that might contribute to our success. We are a younger country, but we are much more crowded country, bigger families, smaller houses, less disciplined nation, I believe from Canada and other countries as well. So there are several factors for each direction, and I'm not sure what was the primary key success to Israel.
Thank you. I'm going to as well let the audience, encourage the audience if there are any questions. I would like to ask, if I may, Moshe, just from one of our other panelists, Nitzan at Forrest, and I know this is maybe a very silly question, but how do you separate the male mosquitoes from the female mosquitoes? You said you've got a patented process. I'm interested to know how that's done.
Well, we separate the mosquitoes at the pupal stage, and the separation is actually is regarded as one of the most, let's say, critical components of scaling up this kind of technology. And fortunately for us, that we've managed to crack this not just on a small scale, but we've managed to develop a system for very rapid, very massive separation of male and female mosquitoes, so that we can do this in a very robust way and much cheaper than Google, by the way.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, Nitzan. Avner, if I could ask you one question as well. Again, you mentioned again that your product is all natural. I know there are competitive products, and I say that unfortunately, speaking from experience. Wondering if you could just maybe highlight what differentiates you very quickly in 2 or 3 points from the other competitive products that are out there. Oh, you're on mute, Avner. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think the major difference, which is really puts us aside from all the other competitors, is the fact that we are not dealing with, everybody injects a viscous liquid, and liquids tend to dissipate and to disappear and to get degraded, and they don't have also any mechanical properties which can support the load. They really serve purely as lubricants. And what we did was to turn this liquid into a gel, into solid elastic gel. It happens in the knee, so you can inject the product with a very fine needle, and get it in. And when it gets into the knee, it will spread and enter all the cracks and fissures and holes in the joint. And then within the 30 to 40 minutes, it becomes a solid hydrogel. And a hydrogel cannot go anywhere. It's not a liquid, so it stays in the knee. It coats the whole surface, and it serves as a shock absorber in addition to filling all the defects. So also pain dissipation, the relief of pain is very quick with the aerosol, because it acts as a sealant and not only as a lubricant. So it acts as a sealant to seal all the holes and some people report almost an immediate pain relief, and most of the others, have pain relief within 48 hours or a week, or the most by 2 weeks following injection. So I think this is the major difference, and the fact that we can get it such a stable gel made only with natural polymers, which the great advantage is the safety, of course. Because the companies which use synthetic hydrogel or synthetic chemistry get usually, even with hyaluronic acid made from rooster combs, you still have some foreign animal-derived materials. Our material is all human source, a recombinant but human origin, and effects so far for almost 3,000 patients injected so far.
That's good. Thank you. I'm just going to ask one last question. Moshe, if I could ask you, and then again, we tell everybody that we try to, we'll try to summarize under an hour. Now that you've in some ways conquered the world in your role as the czar of the COVID, what's next for you in your career?
Oh, I'm still exploring, but I'm into entrepreneurship and investment in digital health, most probably. So this is the direction that seems to be now.
Okay, well, listen, we wish you well. First of all, thank you for attending. Maybe we'll have you back as a representative of a company in the future. I do have one more question that just appeared for Avner, if I may, and then I'll close it out before the hour. Is Avner, someone has asked if the Regenogel is only for knee joints, or is it effective in other joints such as hips or shoulders or elbows or ankles?
Right. So when we started, of course, we targeted the knee, which is the most prevalent joint to be affected. But the product is currently approved for all the joints, and we have very good results also with the ankle, the shoulder, and the small joints of the hand. So it is certainly feasible to, and also the hip, as according to this question. So the answer is yes, it is good also for the other joints as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Well, it's now 6 minutes before the hour. Our attempt is always to keep these meetings short and sweet. I encourage anyone, if they have any further questions for Avner or Nitzan, please reach out, through the chamber. We can get a hold of them. I do very, very much want to thank Moshe, taking time through all this, for appearing. Thank you for what you did, on the COVID crisis. Avner, Nitzan, thank you for taking the time, and also Ronnie. Avner, Nitzan, good luck to both of you on your public offering. We wish you great success. You're both solving problems, that affect hundreds of millions of people worldwide. So we wish you great success. We look forward to having you back at some point and hearing how both of you have succeeded very well. And as I said, Moshe, I look forward to hopefully seeing you back one day, perhaps in a private capacity role, as opposed to all the work you've done on the public service side. For everybody, thank you again for attending. We'll be holding another event in July in the FinTech space, possibly two. But I want to thank everybody for attending. I wish everybody, again, a great summer months in Canada. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, get out there and enjoy it. But I thank you as well, Ronnie. I didn't thank you very much also for appearing, so I do want to thank you. And my partner, Lior, who's done always a great job in the background. So I wish everybody well. Thank you, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.